What's up guys, welcome to my first video in a series I hope to be doing, going over every Mythic Plus dungeon individually, and just going over tips, tricks, things like mob count, pathing, ideas, choices, and so on, as well as mechanics from the trash, the bosses, and ways to handle different things, on specifically with different affixes as well. Now I can't go over everything because one, there's not enough time in the videos, and two, I don't know everything, so if you guys have any tips or tricks that you know of that you want to let me or people know about, feel free to leave those in the comments below. So we're starting out with Neltharion's Lair here, as you can see, and the first pull kind of depends again on affixes, things like bolstering like this video was taken in. You might not want to pull this scorpion with the small mobs depending, or if you do, you want to kill it first. Now this group, there's a pug, so they decided to just AoE the stuff down, but when the little ones die they leave a gas cloud, so just make sure you move out of that. And then finish up the scorpion here. Now the next bit is with some small adds here, and again same thing, gas clouds when they die, nothing too special. Now on teaming weeks I believe there's another scorpion in here, like a big one, so again handle that as you need. And let's move out of the gas when they die. Now I like to pull these gnashes over here on the left, these basilisks, because the mobs later suck, and these are easier and give mob count as well, so I like to pull both of these. Again, bolstering week, generally you want to kill the big ones first, but with just 2 stacks with these little ones it's not too bad, and then you can just finish them up as they don't really do much other than melee. Now after this you get 2 worms. Now these 2 worms that you'll see in a bit, they will eventually burrow and then emerge from underground, and they reset aggro when they do, so just be aware of that as a tank and as a DPS, especially melee. And they will cast something called Viscid Bile, which you can CC to stop, like stuns, disorients, so on. And here they go, they burrow and emerge, or you could just move out of it. As you can see, it's just a frontal ability, so if you're not in front of them, it doesn't do anything. And they do reset the aggro there, as you can see. Now, after these 2, most people will tend to skip the big crystal monsters, as you can see back there, because they suck and they hurt, and there's no reason to really pull them. There's plenty of trash in here you can kill. So I pull as many crawlers as I think is safe, so I can skip the left side into the water. Now, on a bolstering week or a necrotic week where you want to drop combat or not bolster this mob, you probably should wait for the little ones to die, so it's a real big mistake here on my part, at least. But again, and then someone pulls more stuff, so it's kind of a crap moment, but again, just handle it as you need to. Get rid of these little mobs and so on, and then just kill the Nash, and nothing really does anything special other than the gas clouds that are left by these little crawlers. Now after we do eventually kill this huge Nash, that gets even bigger, we are going to go into the water. A couple things to note there, the volcanic on volcanic weeks will actually not hit you in the water. You'll see the animation, it will show up below you and it will explode, but it won't actually do damage to you. So you can use that on volcanic weeks, just drag stuff into the water so that you don't have to worry about the damage at all. Sanguine, however, will still affect you and will still appear and do nasty things to you. Now, I do like to pull the mobs up here by the bridge, and I like to do this because they don't do mechanics really, and if you're going to go over the fence like you do here, go to the right, prefer the right because it's shorter than the middle side. A lot of people try to go up the other side and they get stuck, or you can go, as these guys are, kind of over the between the mushrooms and the fences. So up to you how you go about it, but just go up here, kill these 3, and generally I'll send somebody down early. So as these mobs are dying, as they're getting close to dying, I will send someone down so that they can start the RP a bit early, so you don't have to wait too long as the game does its thing. So here, if someone's already gone down, looks like it's the priest, and then we'll come join him after, so you can jump off the bridge or the waterfall, make sure they're dead, otherwise they kind of evade bug a little bit, and just make sure you don't hit anything with Path of Frost, point your camera down. There's a pool of Sanguine down there, I don't remember what dies, something with the RP maybe, but something will leave a pool down there during Sanguine week, so do be aware of that. And the first boss is pretty typical to use Heroism or Bloodlust here, just because it's there, it's the first boss, pretty standard. And mechanics are pretty simple though, so you go in, pop your cooldowns, and the first thing you'll do is Shatter, and he creates this crystalline ground on the floor, and you just don't want to move while it's up, as it does extra damage to you. Now these little ants are like the little ones from upstairs. When they die, they leave gas clouds. Very bad, no sign of them, pretty simple. He also does an ability called Razor Shards, and Razor Shards will point at the tank, but as soon as he starts casting it, he will actually fixate there, and as you can see, you can actually just move out of it. Now, it does mean you move during crystalline grounds quite a bit, which does hurt a little bit, but it's better than getting hit by that big chunk of huge damage that he does with Razor Shards. One thing to note about the ads, when he does Shadow, the more ads that are up, the more it does, so it's important to kill the ads off before he gets to Shadow, otherwise it will one-shot your group on hierarchies or tyrannical weeks. And then of course, try not to move too much on the crystalline ground. It does have a range, so range can be far enough away to not have to interact with it too much, but it's good to just, in case you are on top of it, don't move too much or you will piss your healer off and probably die. But that's it for this boss, pretty simple and nothing too special. Do be aware, I believe you can probably reset Necrotic a little bit with him, but he does auto attack quite a bit, so if you need to get your stacks reset, you might have to have a DPS taunt, or when he's doing stuff like Razor Shards, run the fuck away from him or to the other side of the room so he has more time to have to go over and chase you, and so on. Now down here, a couple mobs to note. Breaker, he does an avalanche as a frontal attack at the tank, and then he drops rocks on everyone's position. Now that means you can avoid it, so if you move as soon as you see the avalanche go off, if everyone moves to a place that nobody was standing before, you will avoid the damage completely. So here goes avalanche, move away, and you can dodge the damage completely. Pelters, they just attack random people. There's nothing you can really do about that. You can stun them, you can CC them a little bit like that. If you don't attack them directly, so say you're just focusing the breaker and cleaving off, they will not do the disengage that they tend to do. And also, another thing you can do is you can have the tank move out of range, and that way they just chase after him, and they don't have to deal with the damage until he catches up to the tank. Now, obviously, in a skittish week, they can be pretty awkward, but it's just some ways you can deal with pelters, especially single ones like that. And then you pull this extra breaker here, same thing with the avalanche, try to dodge it. Get used to that because it does one shot on really high levels of Mythic Plus, so it's good to get used to that. Now, I like to pull the Hunter and his Nasher here because the Nashers just do a Stone Gaze, which you can just interrupt. It's a stun, so just make sure you do interrupt it. And the Hunter does this little AoE cleave around him. You can outrange it. It's pretty small and it doesn't hurt very much. So again, just free mob count that I like to have, so you don't have to pull more stuff later because the later ads again suck. Now you don't have to pull this. I just like to finish up these two, and then your next pack will be 2 Pelters and a Breaker. Now on Teaming Week, this is actually 4 Pelters and a Breaker, so it really sucks. So things like Binding Shot, Ursul's Vortex, things like that to help keep the Pelters in place, Gorfian's Grasp from Blood Decays, anything like that can help, or again focusing the Breaker and cleaving off of him so that you don't have these idiots kind of jumping around like they do here. And again, move from avalanche. You saw the Death Knight died because he did not handle that mechanic properly. Now up here, I skipped the ones on the right because there's no reason to pull them. We got a Hulk here and a Shaper. Shapers you can think of like Pelters a little bit, except you can actually interrupt their ability that does damage, that does target random people. And it's that little bolt. It's a pretty fast cast. He also does a Totem ability, which just summons a low health totem. Just kill it. It does a little bit of damage. And then just interrupt them as much as possible. Now the Hulk will do a knockback called Fracture on the tank, as you can see right there, and then he'll try to do Piercing Shards. Now, you can just take it. It will follow the tank, so you can't just avoid it by moving, but you can CC it. As you saw, I stunned there. Earlier, the Monk actually used Paralysis to stop it early on, and you just do stuff like that to keep it under control because it hurts a lot, especially on fortified weeks or high keys, so do make sure that you are preventing that damage when possible. Now moving up the ramp here, there's a Pat, which is the exact same one you just killed, Shapers and a Hulk. And basically, unless you're very confident, I wouldn't pull them together necessarily. And because this week was boss round, I choose not to. So same thing, keep the Shaper interrupted, keep the Vile Shard Hulk, under control. After Fracture tends to come Piercing Shard, so he paralyzes that. I actually stunned as well because we weren't really communicating, again, it being a pug and all. And then there's the totem on the left, and you can see it just dies instantly. It's very, very low health, so make sure you just poke those really quickly. And again, make sure these Piercing Shards are interrupted with whatever CC you have to stop it. Now the next pack up there on the left is a Shaper and a Breaker. So that's the caster guy that we just killed twice, and the Avalanche that you can dodge. So make sure that you do dodge that Avalanche when possible. So we interrupt the Shaper. Breaker starts to do Avalanche in a little bit here, and we try to move so we don't get hit. And again, completely avoidable damage as long as you're being aware of where other people are standing to, so you don't accidentally walk into that, because that is again silly and it will still hurt a lot if you do. Up here we've got again Breaker and 2 Pelters. On teaming this will just be 2 Breakers and 2 Pelters, so it still sucks, but just dodge Avalanche because the Pelters will be hurting everyone, and it really sucks to heal through all of that if people aren't being careful. Again, I like to focus the Breaker and then, you know, get the Pelters lower before they start jumping around, but you can, you know, this group didn't choose to because it's Pug, they don't really care, they don't know either way. The other thing, you notice the Pelter on the right is quite close to the boss. Make sure you don't accidentally pull him because it really sucks. If someone casts a big Starfall or a Barrage from a Hunter, it's really unfortunate and generally leads to a wipe. But in this case, we were lucky that nothing bounced up to him, and we were being pretty cautious, I think. So I finish up the Pelter here, and then I pull the trash over there, as you can see in the kind of middle top of my screen now. This is the Shaper and this Geode, and the Geode has like no health basically, and it just does this swirl mechanic that you just stand out of. Pretty simple. Animal dies basically if it's super low health, but it is important to dodge it. You can see it almost one-shot the Death Knight. So finish the Shaper here, and then just kind of go from there. Now there's a Pelter behind where I'm standing currently, and you can pull it if you like. I generally tend to because I don't trust people. Sometimes it pulls around the boss during one of his mechanics if people like kind of follow it or walk around. So I pull it just to be safe. But again, same thing here. Just handle it however you need to. And just finish it up when you can. So here we go. Jumps away. Kill it. Pew pew. Now as for the boss, when you pull it, you want to pre-pop before the tank pulls. He will jump down to the middle of this little area, this little fossil that we're kind of standing on right now. And he will knock people away when they land, when he lands. So pull him, he knocks you away. And at the beginning, if you have a long cooldown or a long duration cooldown, you might not want to use it right away. As you can see, he starts at more mana than 0, which means he will go down, he will disappear faster at the start. Now, tanks, make sure you have a defensive or an active mitigation for Sunder. It happens really quickly, so you want to keep an eye on the timers in your bigwigs or DBM add-on just to make sure that you have it up before he goes down. Now he summons those pillars, kill them because they do extra damage. Down to the mountain, this little mini game, just follow where his original totem is, which is always the middle one. It starts there and moves around. You can just follow it with your eyes, you can try to track it with your mouse to kind of help you out, and then find the right one, mark it for your team if you do find it, hopefully one of them sees it, and kill it. Now there's a lot of damage here, so healers, just be aware there's a lot of AoE. The longer you stay in here, the more it sucks, which is why it's important to get the correct one when you can. Now it does that hand ability, as you can see. So make sure you dodge that. They do collapse on you, and you just move between the 4 directions that the hands are coming from and avoid the damage completely. So here we go ahead and kill the little totems, dodge the hands, and it's just the same thing. Hierarchies, you will tend to get another round of that little mini game, as you'll see here. You generally won't have enough DPS to kill him if the key is kind of relevant, if it's at a level that is challenging for your group. He will go back down again, so don't be too disappointed if he does, or special in tyrannical weeks with the extra health. But again, try to get out of there, try to have people that are good at following those totems so you don't stay in there longer than you have to, because it really sucks for the healers. And then here it goes, disappears down under again. And again, just follow it with your eyes. Go to the right here, down the bottom of the screen to the right a little bit there, all the way to the top left, to the right, and the top middle, or right middle. And then it stays over there on the right side. So just get used to doing that, or if you have trouble with those types of games or puzzles, then just have someone else do it for you and hope that you guys get the right one, and then finish them up. And down goes the boss. Now this next pack up here you can skip on most weeks. If you are not careful though, you will pull, because like one guy far to the left, And also if it's teaming, there's an extra guy even further to the left, and on teaming week you'll tend to have to pull that pack unless you have a rogue, a demon hunter, or a paladin who took repentance. But if you are able to skip, I like to pull the basilisks. Again, easy mob count, very simple, you know, and they don't really do any mechanics. So I'd pull them. They don't all pull together. You have to actually aggro most of them individually. But I had some help from my group here. And you just kill them off. Now, if you do have to pull the pack back there, there's a bunch of stuff there. You can handle it. You can CC stuff if you need to. There's like a Shaper, Palter, Breaker, things like that. It's very, very nasty pack. And again, the only CCs that I know of that work on teaming weeks to prevent aggro from happening at all are again Sap from Rogues, Repentance from Paladins, and the Imprison, I believe it's called, from Demon Hunters. Now this pack, the Grub Master summons grubs, which is his big thing. He also does a little slam around, as you can see there, a little AoE slam. It can be outranged quite easily. And this worm is the same one from the start of the dungeon. It will drop aggro and spit and do all that stuff. Now that tar spitter grub that you just saw die, it's important you do kill that or CC it of some kind, like a stun especially, before it finishes the cast, or it turns into this nasty worm that has poison all around it and drags people into it. It's very annoying. It has quite a bit of health too, so it really sucks. It's best if you just kill it quickly or just kind of stun it to stop it from finishing the cast. Now in this pack, I like to again interrupt the Shaper as much as possible. The Geode should die very quickly to cleave, dodge the swirls, and then just another Grub Master, so nothing too crazy here. Pretty simple pack. I like to kill the Shaper because it just does AoE damage a lot, and random damage that hurts. And then handle the grubs, of course, that do spawn. And again, if they get close, you can stun them or do CCs to interrupt their channel and prevent that metamorphosis from happening. Now, on things like bolstering here specifically, you can see the Grub Master here and the big worm on the left, and then pull all the stuff back, all the little worms, and then kill them out of range of bolstering. It's one way to handle bolstering in general if you want to prevent, you know, making them huge like we do here. The other option is just to pull them, of course, slowly like this, like one pack at a time, or to kill the big mob first. Either way, make sure the grub does not transform, because that really sucks if it does, and then just kill the Grub Master. Same mechanics, same idea. Now, of course, it's huge here, so I'm running away, but it'll be the same with the other pack. And again, in a lower key or key with affixes that don't really matter. If you pull a bunch of stuff, go ahead and pull both together if you like. The little worms don't really do much. They literally just melee and kind of chill out after that. And so here's a grub. I could stun it if I need to, if I feel unconfident, so I do, just to make sure that it does not get its transformation off. And then we go ahead and pull the next pack. Very simple. Again, it's the same kind of worm. It is the one that will burrow and reset aggro and then spit and then just melee again. So again, you could CC on, say, like a bolstering week and then drag the other ones away out of range of bolstering, which I believe is like 30 yards or so, and then come back in. This won't be bolstered anymore. But in this case we do, but it's fine because it just AFKs for a little bit and then smacks me once. And then it dies. Now in this boss, it's important to dodge all the mechanics if possible. At the start, the first thing he'll do is, besides melee of course, is spit in front of him. So just make sure you move out of the green swirls, the green sludge. He'll also summon two adds, these Drogbars. And you can actually target these two things before they jump down, and just up to the right on the cliff. So you can put some damage into them. You can slow them, I believe. I don't think hard CC works. But you want to kill them before they get to him, before he eats them, because he gets a damage buff. And that's very bad, of course. You'll see these bright green pools that are spit on different players. And for the ranged and healers, try to keep them far away from the boss, because the tank will generally need them later to avoid his spiked tongue. And we'll get to that in just a little bit when he does it. But again, here I'm just avoiding these green pools that he puts on the ground. I turn around to check and see what kind of pools, what kind of location I'm looking at for where I need to kite. So here, spits again, move out of the swirls and the pools. And if you have a lot of melee, this can get kind of messy. There won't be too many free spots. So here's Spike Tongue. I run away, speed boost away as far as I can. And in this particular pool, I don't really need the pools, but as you can see, the first ones will disappear. So keep track of which ones came down first, if possible. And then if he drags you into a pool, it slows you down, so it kind of breaks your your drag there. Now I like to taunt on the way back to prevent melee from getting hit by his melee attacks, because he does tend to do that if you don't do that, if you don't taunt him, just to give him like second pause where he's trying to hit you and the game is trying to say like, oh yeah, he can't actually hit you, otherwise they can get insta-jibbed, which is really unfortunate. But pool placement is important. Your group can fuck you a little bit. His hitbox is pretty big, so if it's too close, you'll actually still get pulled into his spike tongue and give him a buff, which sucks. Now up here you got a new mob called Demotion, and this will cast Charskin and turn into a giant Charskin. It's a giant golem, and basically it'll fixate on someone. You can stun it after it's transformed, or after it's fixated. You can CC it and so on and slow it, but it'll just refixate afterwards. So I stun it there, and then eventually it will get out of the stun and it refixates on someone and just melees them if it reaches them, so you can kite it and so on. There's also a breaker here, does the avalanche, same stuff as usual. Try to dodge it so you don't take extra damage. Now these dominators, these scorpions, they hit really hard. They cleave in front of them, they frenzy themselves, which is a self buff, and they're basically pelters on crack, because they also, this idiot on the back, which I actually think might be a pelter, actually just throw stuff. And so even if you stun the scorpion, even if you CC it so it can't do anything, the guy on the back will still AoE your group or still smack people. So it just hurts a lot. Healers have to deal with it. Small cooldowns, self heals from DPS and so on can really help. Do note that the scorpions give a lot of percentage, 4.55% on non-teaming weeks. So you'll have a lot of count here, so just kind of plan your route as you need to. Now, on teaming weeks, there's actually 2 of those Charskin guys here. Those, I think Dominators was what they were called. And so you have to handle those before you get to these packs. But for these packs in general, for like bolstering, for example, you actually want to make sure that you don't kill the crappers. First, I make a very bad call. They're basically pelters also, but you can stun them and stop the damage completely. And you can also they interrupt their cast called Bound, which will stun the tank or whoever they have aggro on. Very important to do so. And then again, Dominators face it away from the group. Good luck, healers. Try not to die, because there's a lot of damage going out and there's nothing much you can do about it. Now, again, if it's a bolstering week like this one was, you can CC the Trapper and then bring the Scorpion out of range of bolstering and kill the Scorpion separately, things like that. So millions of different ways to handle the same mechanics, but again, I make a bad call, say, hey, let's kill the Trapper first. Up to you how you handle it, different affixes, different weeks, and so on. But just make sure you interrupt Bound and make a decision, logical decision about how to handle these pulls, because they do hurt a lot. Make sure your healer's ready and prepared, make sure your DPS are prepared, and so on. Now if you need more mob count after you've jumped down, there's some behind where I'm standing, and you won't really see them in this video, but they are just, I believe, some easy mobs. I don't remember exactly what they are, but they give a few percentage, so there's some stuff you can pull from upstairs if you need the count. In this case we didn't, so we don't. Now for the last boss, you just have a couple mechanics that you want to follow, and generally you'll have Heroism or Bloods for this, or you can use it on the worm back there, which I didn't mention, but kind of up to you which one you find more trouble in. Typically the worm gives people more trouble though, so you can use it on him instead. So I pull him, face him away from the group, because he does do his landslide, which is a big cleave, and he'll summon these spikes, as you can see, which are line of sight walls, and they're very important to a mechanic later. They will break if he does his Molten Crash or landslide at them, and they will also break if the Golem walks into them. Now you actually want this Charskin to walk into them, because when he does, they take more damage. They become vulnerable, and of course you don't want to let him hit you. As you can see, those two just kind of AFK'd there for some reason. Now he hits the thing, the wall, he becomes cracked, and then he actually takes more damage, so it's good to kill him at that point. Now for tanks, make sure you have active mitigation up for Molten Crash. Landslide will always knock you back, but Molten Crash will knock you back and do more damage if you don't have active mitigation up, so make sure you have whatever that is for you. In this case, for my Paladin, it will Shield the Righteous, so just make sure that's up every time, and point Landslide away from the walls again. He can destroy them if you let him use Landslide in that direction. After that, he'll do Magma Wave, and this is where people want to line of sight. Now I can just pop a big cooldown, use Blessed and Spell Warding, and there's magic damage, so just use a big cooldown if you want to, or just hide behind the pillars. Now it's not line of sight behind the pillars, like You can still cast at him and at people, like heals or damage. But it is important to just not die to that mechanic. It's very simple. And he does, as you can see, leave a giant pool of lava down once he's done doing his magma wave. And then he summons another ad, and you rinse and repeat until he dies. So that's pretty much it for Neltharion's Lair, guys. If you have any tricks or tips of your own that you know about it and want to share, feel free to leave those in the comments below. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative and useful. And I hope you guys liked it. Thanks for watching. Cheers.